The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain as Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her radio pack for the third time. The weight felt heavier today, though she knew it was exactly the same 40-pound load she carried on every mission. Around her, the members of Alpha Squad moved with practiced efficiency, checking weapons, securing gear, and going through their pre-mission rituals. "Santos, you good back there?" called out Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, the squad leader. His tone carried the usual mix of concern and impatience that came before heading into hostile territory. "All systems green, Sergeant," Maria replied, running her fingers over the radio controls one final time. She had been with Alpha Squad for 8 months now, and while the men respected her technical skills, she could feel the invisible barrier that separated her from the rest of them. In their eyes, she was support personnel. Essential, yes, but not quite one of them. The mission briefing had been straightforward enough. Intelligence reported enemy movement in the mountain ridge overlooking Highway 7, a critical supply route that coalition forces needed to keep open. Alpha Squad's job was to conduct reconnaissance, identify any threats, and call in appropriate responses. It was supposed to be a routine patrol, the kind Maria had done dozens of times before. Private Thompson, barely 19 and on his second deployment, nervously checked his rifle for the 4th time. "Think we'll see any action today, Sergeant Santos?" Maria smiled at the young soldier's mix of anxiety and excitement. "Let's hope not, Thompson. Boring missions are the best missions." Corporal Jenkins, a veteran with 3 tours under his belt, snorted. "Easy for you to say, Santos. You just sit back and talk on the radio while we do the real work." The comment stung, though Maria kept her expression neutral. She had heard variations of it countless times before. To many of the infantry soldiers, her role as communications specialist seemed safe and removed from the actual fighting. They didn't understand the responsibility that came with being the lifeline between their squad and the outside world, or the pressure of knowing that one missed transmission could mean the difference between rescue and disaster. "Communications is real work," Jenkins, Rodriguez said firmly. "Without Santos, we're just 8 guys wandering around the mountains with no way to call for help or coordinate with command. Show some respect." Jenkins shrugged, but said nothing more. The exchange highlighted the ongoing tension Maria faced in her military career. She had joined the army to serve her country and prove herself in combat, but instead found herself constantly having to justify her value to her fellow soldiers. As the squad began their trek toward the ridge, Maria fell into her usual position toward the rear of the formation. From here, she could monitor radio chatter from multiple units, coordinate with air support if needed, and maintain contact with their forward operating base. The radio equipment on her back included not just standard communication gear, but also GPS systems, satellite uplinks, and emergency beacon transmitters. The terrain grew increasingly difficult as they climbed. Loose rocks shifted under their boots, and the thin mountain air made each step more laborious. Maria's physical training had prepared her for this, but carrying the additional weight of communications equipment made the ascent particularly challenging. She focused on her breathing and maintained her pace, determined not to slow down the squad. 2 hours into the patrol, they reached their first checkpoint. Rodriguez called for a brief rest while he consulted his map and checked their position. Maria immediately began her communications protocol, checking in with base and updating their location. Her fingers moved quickly across the radio controls, adjusting frequencies and confirming signal strength. "Base, this is Alpha 6, she spoke into her headset. "We are at Checkpoint Alpha. All personnel accounted for, no enemy contact." "Over." "Roger, Alpha 6, came the response from their operations center. "Continue to Objective Bravo. Be advised, Hawk 3-1 is in your area conducting close air support training. Monitor tactical frequency if assistance is required." "Over." "Copy base. Alpha 6 out." Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "Good work, Santos. How's our communication with air support?" 5x5, Sergeant. If we need them, they can be on station in under 10 minutes. Let's hope we don't need them." As they prepared to move out, Specialist Carter approached Maria. Carter was one of the newer additions to the squad, a soft-spoken soldier from Oklahoma who rarely participated in the casual hazing that Maria sometimes endured. "Hey Santos, he said quietly. "I wanted to thank you for helping me with that radio procedure last week. My wife's baby is due any day now, and knowing I can reach her if something happens means a lot." Maria smiled genuinely for the first time that day. "Anytime, Carter. That's what we're here for." The remainder of the morning passed without incident as Alpha Squad made their way toward their primary observation point. The ridge they were approaching offered excellent visibility over the highway below, but it also represented potentially dangerous terrain where enemy forces could establish ambush positions or observation posts of their own. Maria's radio crackled with routine traffic from other units in the area. She filtered through the chatter, identifying relevant information and filing away potentially useful intelligence. Her training had taught her to listen not just for direct communications to their squad, but for any information that might affect their mission or safety. Around midday, they reached their objective. The ridge provided a commanding view of the valley below, with Highway 7 clearly visible as it wound through the mountainous landscape. Rodriguez deployed his men in defensive positions while Maria set up her communication station in a sheltered area behind a large boulder. "Base, Alpha 6, she transmitted. "We have reached Objective Bravo and are beginning reconnaissance. We'll provide updates every 30 minutes unless contact occurs." "Over." "Roger, Alpha 6. "Understood." Through her binoculars, Maria could see convoy traffic moving along the highway. Coalition supply trucks, local civilian vehicles, and the occasional military patrol created a steady stream of activity below. Everything appeared normal, but Maria knew that appearances could be deceiving in this part of the country. Jenkins was positioned about 50 meters to her left, using his rifle scope to scan the opposite ridge for signs of enemy activity. Thompson and Carter were spread out along their perimeter, while Rodriguez coordinated with the team's designated marksman, Sergeant Walsh, to establish overlapping fields of observation. For the first hour, Maria divided her attention between monitoring radio communications and scanning the terrain below. The routine nature of the mission was almost lulling, but her training kept her alert and focused. In combat zones, complacency could be deadly. It was Carter who first noticed something unusual. "Sergeant Rodriguez," he called out softly. "I've got movement on the north face of the opposite ridge. Looks like someone's trying to stay hidden." Rodriguez immediately moved to Carter's position, bringing his own binoculars to bear on the area in question. After several moments of careful observation, he keyed his radio. "Santos, give me a priority channel to base. We may have something." Maria's pulse quickened as she quickly established the requested communication link. This was the moment when her role shifted from routine support to critical mission function. Every word she transmitted could influence decisions that affected not just their squad, but potentially dozens of other soldiers and civilians in the area. The peaceful morning reconnaissance mission was about to become something much more serious, and Maria Santos was about to discover just how much her fellow soldiers would come to depend on the woman they had dismissed as just support. Rodriguez's binoculars remained fixed on the distant ridge as Maria quickly established the priority communication channel. The casual atmosphere of their morning patrol had evaporated, replaced by the tense alertness that came with potential enemy contact. "Base, this is Alpha 6 with priority traffic." Maria spoke into her headset, her voice calm and professional despite the adrenaline beginning to course through her system. "Go ahead, Alpha 6. We have possible enemy personnel on the north face of Ridge 247, approximately 800 meters from our position. Request immediate intelligence update on known hostile activity in this sector." There was a brief pause before Base responded. "Alpha 6, no known hostile activity reported in your sector within the last 72 hours. Can you confirm numbers and activity?" Maria looked toward Rodriguez, who was still observing the suspicious movement. He held up 3 fingers, then made a digging motion with his hand. "Base, we observe approximately 3 personnel appearing to establish some type of position. Recommend immediate surveillance asset, if available." "Copy, Alpha 6. Stand by for taskings." While waiting for Base to respond, Maria switched to the tactical frequency monitoring air support. She needed to know exactly what assets were available should the situation escalate. Her fingers worked quickly across the radio controls, a skill developed through countless hours of training and field experience. Hawk 3-1. This is Alpha 6 on tactical frequency. Are you still in our area for immediate support if required? Alpha 6, Hawk 3-1. Affirmative. We are currently conducting training exercises approximately 15 clicks south of your position. We can be on station in 8 minutes if you need us. Copy, Hawk 3-1. Stand by for possible tasking. Rodriguez crawled back to Maria's position, keeping his profile low. What's the word from base? They have no intelligence on hostile activity in this area, but they're working on getting us surveillance support. Air support can be here in 8 minutes if we need it. Good work. Rodriguez studied his map, calculating distances and potential scenarios. I don't like this. 3 people digging in on that ridge gives them perfect observation over the highway. If they're placing IEDs or calling in mortar strikes, they could hit every convoy that comes through here. Jenkins had been listening to their conversation from his nearby position. Maybe it's just local farmers or something. Not everyone up here is trying to kill us. Maybe, Rodriguez replied. But farmers don't usually dig fighting positions with military precision. Walsh, what do you see through your scope? Sergeant Walsh, their designated marksman, had been observing the distant ridge through his high-powered rifle scope. Definitely military movement, Sergeant. I can see at least 2 individuals wearing what looks like military-style clothing, and they're setting up some kind of equipment. Could be observation gear, could be weapons. Maria's radio crackled with an incoming transmission from base. Alpha 6, we are redirecting a surveillance drone to your area. ETA 15 minutes. Continue observation and report any changes in enemy activity. Copy base. We'll continue observation. Thompson, positioned on the squad's left flank, suddenly tensed. Sergeant, I've got more movement. This time on our side of the valley, maybe 400 meters down the ridge from us. Rodriguez cursed under his breath. Santos, get back on the radio. We may have a bigger problem than we thought. Maria immediately keyed her transmitter. Base, Alpha 6 with updated intelligence. We now observe additional personnel on our side of the valley. Request immediate guidance on rules of engagement and available support. Alpha 6, maintain observation. Do not engage unless directly threatened. Hawk 3-1 has been placed on immediate standby for your support. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. What had begun as a routine reconnaissance mission was now looking like a potential ambush scenario. Maria realized that her communications equipment might be the only thing standing between her squad and disaster. Rodriguez gathered his men for a quick conference, keeping their voices low and their profiles hidden behind the rocky outcropping that provided their cover. Here's the situation, he said quietly. We've got at least 5 enemy personnel in positions that could effectively trap us on this ridge. Santos, I need you to coordinate with air support and prepare for immediate extraction if this goes bad. Already working on it, Sergeant, Maria replied, simultaneously monitoring multiple radio frequencies for any changes in the tactical situation. Carter looked nervous but determined. What's the plan, Sergeant? We maintain observation and gather intelligence until that drone gets here. If they make any aggressive moves toward us or toward traffic on the highway, we call in air support and get out of here fast. Walsh continued his observation through his rifle scope. Sergeant, the group on the far ridge is definitely setting up some kind of equipment. Could be a mortar tube or anti-tank weapon. Maria's training kicked in as she processed multiple information streams simultaneously. Radio chatter from base, communications with air support, and monitoring of other units in the area all required her constant attention. She had become the squad's link to the outside world, and she knew that any mistake in communications could have devastating consequences. Base, Alpha 6. Our marksman reports possible heavy weapons emplacement on Ridge 247. Request immediate priority for surveillance drone and recommend alerting convoy traffic to potential threat along Highway 7. Copy, Alpha 6. Convoy traffic is being halted pending resolution of your situation. Surveillance drone is now ETA 10 minutes. Jenkins shifted uncomfortably in his position. How did we go from a simple patrol to this mess? Because the enemy gets a vote, Rodriguez replied grimly. Santos, what's our extraction plan if things go wrong? Maria had already been working on exactly that question. Hawk 3-1 can provide close air support and Coordinate with a quick reaction force from Firebase Delta. If we need immediate extraction, they can have helicopters here in 20 minutes. But we need to move to landing zone Charlie, about 600 meters down the ridge. That's a long way to move under fire, Thompson observed. Better than dying up here, Walsh replied matter-of-factly. The next few minutes passed in tense silence as the squad maintained their observation of both enemy positions. Maria continued her radio coordination, updating base on their situation and ensuring that support assets remained in position for immediate response. Suddenly, Carter's voice cut through the tension. "Sergeant, convoy approaching from the south. Looks like 3 vehicles, probably civilian supply trucks." Rodriguez swung his binoculars toward the highway. Sure enough, a small convoy was approaching the stretch of road that would put it directly in the line of sight from both enemy positions. "Santos, get on the radio now. That convoy needs to be stopped before it enters the kill zone." Maria's fingers flew across her radio controls as she switched to the emergency frequency used for convoy coordination. "Any convoy element approaching Highway 7 from the south. This is Alpha 6 with emergency traffic. Halt your movement immediately and take cover. You are approaching a potential ambush zone. Alpha 6, this is Convoy 77. We copy emergency halt. Taking cover now." On the distant ridge, the enemy personnel seemed to react to the convoy's sudden stop. Through Walsh's scope, they could see increased activity and what appeared to be preparation for immediate action. "They know we're here," Walsh reported. "Whatever they were planning, our presence has compromised their timeline. They're going to have to act soon or risk losing their opportunity." Rodriguez made a quick decision. "Santos, call in air support now. We're not waiting for them to make the first move." Maria had already anticipated the order and was switching to the tactical air support frequency. Hawk 3-1, Alpha 6 requesting immediate close air support. We have multiple enemy personnel in prepared positions threatening coalition convoy traffic. Request immediate response. Alpha 6, Hawk 3-1 copies. We are inbound to your location, ETA 4 minutes. Prepare to mark targets for engagement. The die had been cast. Maria Santos, the communications specialist who had been dismissed as just support, had just become the central figure in a developing firefight that would test every skill she had learned and every ounce of courage she possessed. The sound of approaching aircraft engines could be heard in the distance as Maria coordinated what was rapidly becoming a complex tactical engagement. Her radio equipment, once considered just support gear by her squad mates, had become the lifeline for multiple units across the valley. Hawk 3-1, Alpha 6. I need you to understand our tactical picture, Maria transmitted, her voice steady despite the chaos developing around them. We have enemy positions on 2 separate ridges, approximately 800 meters apart. The primary threat is on Ridge 247 to our north, with at least 3 personnel and possible heavy weapons. Secondary threat is 400 meters down our ridge to the east. Copy, Alpha 6. We have visual on your smoke marker. Can you mark enemy positions for engagement? Rodriguez had been preparing for exactly this moment. He pulled smoke grenades from his pack and signaled to his men. Walsh, can you put accurate fire on that far ridge to mark the position? Affirmative, Sergeant. I can put 3 rounds right on their position. Do it. Walsh's rifle cracked 3 times in rapid succession, the sound echoing across the valley. Through her binoculars, Maria could see the impacts near the enemy position on the distant ridge. Hawk 3-1. Target marking is 3 rifle impacts on north face of Ridge 247. Enemy personnel are approximately 50 meters west of those impacts, dug in along the ridge line. Alpha 6. I have visual on rifle impacts. Stand by for gun run. Maria switched frequencies quickly to coordinate with base. Base, Alpha 6. We have close air support inbound for engagement. Request you maintain surveillance drone at safe distance, and continue convoy hold on Highway 7. Copy, Alpha 6. Drone is holding at 3 kilometers. All convoy traffic remains halted. The tactical situation was unfolding exactly as Maria's training had prepared her for, but the reality was far more intense than any simulation. She found herself managing communications between air support, base operations, convoy traffic, and her own squad simultaneously. each requiring precise information and split-second timing. Suddenly, muzzle flashes erupted from both enemy positions. The distinctive crack of incoming rifle fire sent the squad scrambling for better cover as bullets struck the rocks around their position. "Contact!" Rodriguez shouted. "All positions, return fire." Maria pressed herself against the boulder that served as her communications shelter as rifle rounds impacted nearby. The irony wasn't lost on her that the communications equipment everyone had considered safe rear area support was now drawing direct enemy fire. Hawk 3-1. Alpha 6 is taking direct fire from both enemy positions. Request immediate engagement. Alpha 6, beginning attack run now. Keep your heads down. The sound of the approaching aircraft grew louder as the A-10 Thunderbolt began its gun run. Maria could hear the distinctive whine of the aircraft's engines as it lined up on the enemy position. Thompson, positioned about 20 meters away, suddenly cried out and fell behind his cover. "I'm hit. I'm hit." Without hesitation, Carter began low-crawling toward Thompson's position to provide medical aid, but the enemy fire was too intense. He was forced to take cover behind a small outcropping, unable to reach the wounded soldier. "Santos," Rodriguez called out over the gunfire. "Can you raise the medical evacuation frequency? Thompson needs immediate help." Maria was already switching radio frequencies, her training allowing her to operate the equipment instinctively even under fire. "Dustoff 7-2, this is Alpha 6 with urgent medical evacuation request." "Alpha 6, Dustoff 7-2. Go ahead with your request. We have one urgent surgical patient requiring immediate evacuation. Landing zone Charlie is 600 meters southeast of our current position, but we are currently under enemy fire and cannot move to LZ." The A-10's cannon suddenly roared to life, sending a stream of depleted uranium rounds into the enemy position on the distant ridge. The 30mm shells exploded in a line of devastating impacts that silenced the enemy fire from that direction. Good hits, Walsh called out. "Target on Ridge 247 is neutralized." But the enemy position on their own ridge was still active, and the fighters there had used the distraction of the air attack to move closer to Alpha Squad's position. Maria could see muzzle flashes from multiple locations now, indicating that the enemy had spread out and was attempting to flank their position. Hawk 3-1, we still have active enemy on our ridge, approximately 200 meters east of our position and moving closer. Alpha 6, I need better target marking for danger close engagement. Can you provide laser designation or improved marking? Maria realized that the aircraft needed precise target information to engage enemy forces that were now very close to their position. Any mistake could result in friendly fire casualties. Negative on laser designation, Hawk 3-1. We'll mark with smoke. Rodriguez had heard the exchange and was already preparing another smoke grenade. "Jenkins." "Carter," Rodriguez shouted. "When I throw smoke, you put suppressing fire on that position." Walsh, same thing, but watch for the aircraft's attack run. The coordinated action unfolded with military precision despite the chaotic circumstances. Rodriguez's smoke grenade arced through the air and exploded in a cloud of red smoke near the enemy position. Immediately, Jenkins and Carter began laying down suppressing fire while Walsh looked for targets through his scope. Hawk 3-1, target marked with red smoke. Enemy personnel are in rocks approximately 30 meters north of smoke marker. Alpha 6, I have visual. Beginning attack run. Danger close. Keep your heads down. Maria pressed herself as low as possible behind her boulder as the A-10 made its second gun run. The aircraft's cannon fired in short, controlled bursts, walking the rounds dangerously close to their own position, but devastating the enemy fighters who had been advancing on them. The enemy fire ceased abruptly. Alpha 6, Hawk 3-1. I show no more movement from either enemy position. Are you clear to move to your wounded soldier? Rodriguez quickly assessed the tactical situation. Santos, tell air support to maintain overwatch while we move to Thompson. And get that medical evacuation helicopter moving toward landing zone Charlie. Maria immediately coordinated both requests. Hawk 3-1. Request you maintain overwatch of both ridge positions while we move to casualty collection. Dustoff 7-2. We are moving to landing zone Charlie with one urgent surgical patient. Request immediate launch for pickup. Alpha 6, Wilco on overwatch. I can stay on station for another 15 minutes. Alpha 6, Dustoff 72, is launching now. ETA to LZ Charlie is 12 minutes. Carter had reached Thompson and was applying field dressings to a gunshot wound in the young soldier's leg. He's stable but losing blood. We need to get him out of here fast. Rodriguez organized the squad for movement to the landing zone. Santos, you take point on the radio coordination. Walsh and Jenkins carry Thompson. Carter, you're on rear security. Let's move. As they began their rapid descent toward the landing zone, Maria continued her radio coordination, updating base on their situation, monitoring air support, and coordinating with the incoming medical helicopter. Her communications equipment, which had seemed like such a burden during the peaceful morning patrol, had become the key to their survival. The woman her squad mates had labeled as just support had just coordinated a complex air engagement, medical evacuation, and tactical withdrawal under enemy fire. But the mission wasn't over yet, and Maria Santos was about to face her greatest test of skill and courage. The descent toward landing zone Charlie was treacherous, made more dangerous by the need to carry Thompson while maintaining security against possible additional enemy forces. Maria maintained constant communication with multiple units as they moved, her radio pack bouncing against her back with each careful step down the rocky slope. Dustoff 72, Alpha 6. We are approximately 3 minutes out from LZ Charlie with one urgent surgical patient. Patient is stable but requires immediate transport to surgical facility. Alpha 6, Dustoff 72. We have visual on LZ Charlie and are beginning our approach. Be advised, we are taking sporadic ground fire from unknown positions south of the LZ. Maria's blood ran cold. The medical evacuation helicopter was under attack, which meant there were more enemy forces in the area than they had initially identified. She immediately switched frequencies to contact air support. Hawk 3-1, Alpha 6. Dustoff is taking fire from positions south of LZ Charlie. Request immediate assistance. Alpha 6, Hawk 3-1. I'm moving to investigate. Can you provide any additional information on enemy positions? Rodriguez had heard the radio traffic and made an immediate tactical decision. We can't wait for the LZ to be completely cleared. Thompson is losing too much blood. Santos, coordinate with air support to suppress that enemy fire while the helicopter lands. Maria found herself in the position of coordinating a complex operation involving close air support, medical evacuation, and ground movement, all while under potential enemy fire. Her training had prepared her for this, but the reality was overwhelming in its intensity and consequence. Hawk 3-1, we need you to suppress enemy fire south of LZ Charlie immediately. Dustoff cannot land safely with hostile fire in the area. Alpha 6, I have visual on muzzle flashes approximately 400 meters south of the LZ. Beginning suppression run now. Walsh, who had been carrying Thompson's legs while Jenkins supported his upper body, suddenly spotted additional enemy movement. Sergeant, we've got more problems. I see at least 2 individuals moving to intercept us about 200 meters down the trail. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. They were caught in the open with a wounded soldier, facing enemy fire from multiple directions, with a medical helicopter trying to land under hostile conditions. Rodriguez assessed their options quickly. We can't go back up the ridge, and we can't stop here in the open. Santos, tell that helicopter pilot that we're coming in hot, and they need to be ready for immediate dust-off. Maria keyed her radio with practiced efficiency. Dustoff 72, Alpha 6. We are approaching LZ under enemy fire from multiple directions. Request you maintain engines running for immediate departure upon patient pickup. Alpha 6, understood. We'll be ready for immediate departure. The A-10 made its suppression run, cannon fire raking the area south of the landing zone where enemy muzzle flashes had been observed. The sound was deafening as 30mm rounds impacted the rocky terrain, sending up clouds of dust and debris. Good hits on southern position, the pilot reported. I don't see any more movement from that area, but I'm running low on ammunition. You need to move fast. Carter, bringing up the rear of their formation, suddenly opened fire on the enemy personnel who had been moving to intercept them. Contact rear. We've got 2 fighters trying to flank us. Maria immediately coordinated additional support. Hawk 3-1. We have enemy contact on our 6, approximately 150 meters behind our current position. Alpha 6, I see them. Stand by for gun run. The situation had become a running firefight as Alpha Squad raced toward the landing zone with their wounded comrade. Maria's communications coordination was now literally a matter of life and death, not just for Thompson, but for the entire squad. As they crested the final ridge overlooking landing zone Charlie, they could see the medical helicopter hovering just above the ground, its crew chief standing in the door with a medical stretcher ready for immediate loading. But between them and the helicopter, new enemy positions had opened fire. Muzzle flashes erupted from rocks and bushes around the landing zone, forcing the helicopter to climb higher to avoid the incoming rounds. Dustoff 7-2, Alpha 6. The LZ is not secure. Recommend you climb to safe altitude until we can clear the area. Alpha 6, negative. Your patient is running out of time. We're going in. Rodriguez made a command decision that would risk the entire squad. Everyone listen up. We're going to provide covering fire while Santos coordinates close air support to clear that LZ. When I give the word, we advance by bounds toward that helicopter. Maria switched to air support frequency. Hawk 3-1. We need immediate suppression of enemy positions around LZ Charlie. Dustoff is attempting to land with critical patient aboard. Alpha 6, I'm down to my last gun run. After this, you're on your own until another aircraft arrives. Copy, Hawk 3-1. Make it count. The A-10 began its final attack run, its cannon targeting the enemy positions around the landing zone. Maria coordinated the timing with mathematical precision. All Alpha 6 elements. When Hawk 3-1 breaks from his gun run, we advance by fire teams. Jenkins and Walsh, you're first bound. Carter and I will provide covering fire. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone. Maria Santos, the communications specialist who had been dismissed as support personnel, was now coordinating tactical movement and fire support for the entire squad. The A-10's cannon roared one final time, sending a devastating stream of fire into the enemy positions around the landing zone. As soon as the aircraft broke off its attack run, Rodriguez gave the signal. Move. Jenkins and Walsh sprinted forward with Thompson between them, covering the open ground toward the waiting helicopter as fast as they could manage while carrying a wounded soldier. Carter and Maria provided covering fire, her rifle surprisingly effective despite her primary role as a communications specialist. The helicopter crew chief reached out to help load Thompson as soon as the first fire team reached the aircraft. Maria continued coordinating with the pilot over radio. Dustoff 7-2, we have patient loaded. Can you get out of here safely? Alpha 6, we're taking some fire, but nothing we can't handle. Thanks for the cover. As the medical helicopter lifted off with Thompson aboard, Maria felt a moment of relief. But their own situation remained precarious. They were still on a ridge top with limited ammunition, facing an unknown number of enemy forces, and their air support had just departed. Rodriguez gathered the remaining squad members around Maria's radio position. Santos, what other support do we have available? Maria was already working the problem. Quick reaction force from Firebase Delta can be here in 15 minutes. Hawk 3-2 is en route to replace our air support, ETA 8 minutes. We also have artillery support available from Firebase Charlie if we can get accurate target coordinates. Outstanding work, Santos. You may have just saved all our lives. Jenkins, who had been one of Maria's harshest critics that morning, looked at her with new respect. I owe you an apology, Sergeant Santos. You've been carrying this squad today. But Maria wasn't finished yet. The most critical moment of the entire mission was still ahead, and it would require everything she had learned about communications, tactics, and leadership to get her squad home safely. With Thompson safely evacuated, Alpha Squad found themselves in a defensive position on the ridge, surrounded by evidence of the fierce engagement they had just survived. Spent brass casings littered the rocky ground around their position, and the acrid smell of gunpowder hung in the mountain air. Maria's radio equipment had become the squad's lifeline, and She was working frantically to coordinate their extraction. Base, Alpha 6. Patient has been successfully evacuated. Request immediate extraction for remaining personnel. We have expended significant ammunition and may be facing additional enemy forces in the area. Alpha 6, base copies. Quick reaction force is en route to your location. ETA 12 minutes. Hawk 3-2 is also inbound for close air support. ETA 5 minutes. Rodriguez checked his ammunition and surveyed their tactical situation. How are we doing on ammo, everyone? The reports were not encouraging. Walsh had 3 magazines remaining for his sniper rifle. Jenkins was down to his last 2 rifle magazines. Carter had 4 magazines, but had been using them rapidly during the firefights. Santos, what about you? Rodriguez asked. Maria checked her gear. I've got 6 magazines, but I also need to keep this radio equipment operational. If we lose communications, we lose everything. As if summoned by her words, enemy fire suddenly erupted from a new position about 300 meters down the ridge. The enemy fighters had apparently repositioned during the helicopter evacuation and were now attempting to cut off Alpha Squad's retreat route. Contact front. Carter called out, immediately returning fire. Maria was already on the radio. Hawk 3-2, Alpha 6. We have renewed enemy contact approximately 300 meters southeast of our position. Request immediate close air support. Alpha 6, Hawk 3-2. I'm 2 minutes out from your position. Can you mark the enemy location? Walsh was peering through his rifle scope at the enemy position. I can see at least 4 fighters in a defensive position behind those large rocks. They've got good cover and excellent fields of fire. Rodriguez realized they were facing a coordinated enemy force that had been waiting for exactly this opportunity. Santos, this wasn't a random encounter. These guys knew we were coming, and they've been setting up ambush positions all day. Maria's mind raced through the tactical implications. Sergeant, if they've been tracking our movements, they probably know about the quick reaction force too. This could be a much larger ambush than we thought. Get on the radio and warn the QRF. They could be walking into the same trap. Maria immediately switched frequencies. QRF Alpha 7, this is Alpha 6 with urgent traffic. You may be approaching a complex ambush situation. We are facing coordinated enemy forces in prepared positions. Recommend extreme caution on approach to our location. Alpha 6, QRF Alpha 7 copies. We have gunship escort and will approach with appropriate caution. The sound of approaching aircraft engines signaled the arrival of Hawk 3-2, but Maria noticed something troubling in the radio chatter she was monitoring. Sergeant, I'm picking up radio traffic that suggests there might be additional enemy forces south of here, possibly with heavy weapons. Before Rodriguez could respond, the distinctive whistle of incoming mortar rounds filled the air. The first explosion occurred about 50 meters from their position, showering them with rock fragments and dust. Incoming. Everyone take cover. Rodriguez shouted. Maria pressed herself against her boulder as more mortar rounds impacted around their position. The enemy had brought indirect fire weapons to the engagement, dramatically changing the tactical situation. Hawk 3-2 Alpha 6. We are taking mortar fire from unknown positions. Request immediate assistance in locating and engaging mortar position. Alpha 6. I'm scanning the area for mortar signatures. Stand by. Another salvo of mortar rounds impacted even closer to their position. Maria realized that the enemy was adjusting their fire and would soon have their exact location. They needed to move, but any movement would expose them to the rifle fire from the enemy position down the ridge. Sergeant, we can't stay here, Walsh called out. They're going to drop a round right on top of us. Rodriguez was calculating their limited options when Maria made a decision that would define the rest of her military career. Sergeant, I can call in artillery support from Firebase Charlie, but I need to move to a position where I can get better coordinates on that mortar position. That means exposing yourself to enemy fire, Santos. It's either that or we all die here when they get their range figured out. Rodriguez looked at the young communications specialist who had already proven herself far beyond anyone's expectations that day. Do it. Maria began moving to a position that would give her a better view of the suspected mortar location, carrying her radio equipment and maintaining communications with multiple units simultaneously. Enemy rifle fire cracked overhead as she moved, but she focused on her task with deadly determination. Firebase Charlie, Alpha 6 requesting immediate fire mission. Grid coordinates follow. Maria read off the precise location coordinates for the suspected mortar position while bullets struck the rocks around her. Alpha 6, Firebase Charlie copies fire mission. Rounds out in 30 seconds. Hawk 3-2 had located the enemy rifle position and was beginning its attack run. Alpha 6, I have visual on enemy personnel and rocks 300 meters southeast of your position. Beginning engagement. The coordination of artillery, close air support, and ground forces required split-second timing and precise communication. Maria found herself at the center of a complex military operation, her radio equipment and training the only thing standing between her squad and destruction. The artillery rounds from Firebase Charlie impacted in a thunderous explosion that shook the entire ridge. The mortar fire stopped immediately, indicating that the fire mission had been successful. Simultaneously, Hawk 3-2's cannon fire destroyed the enemy rifle position, eliminating the immediate threat to Alpha Squad's position. Outstanding work, Santos. Rodriguez called out. You just saved all our lives. The quick reaction force arrived minutes later, their helicopters providing additional firepower and the means for Alpha Squad to finally extract from the ridge. As they boarded the aircraft, Jenkins approached Maria with obvious respect. Sergeant Santos, I want to apologize for everything I said this morning. You're not support personnel. You're the reason we're all going home alive. Carter nodded in agreement. That radio work under fire was incredible. I've never seen anything like it. Even Walsh, typically reserved with praise, added his assessment. You coordinated artillery, air support, medical evacuation, and ground forces simultaneously while taking enemy fire. That's not support work. That's combat leadership. As their helicopter lifted off from the ridge, Maria looked back at the battlefield where she had proven herself beyond any doubt. The morning patrol that had begun with casual dismissal of her role had ended with the recognition that her skills were not just valuable, but essential. Rodriguez sat down beside her as the aircraft gained altitude. Santos, I'm going to recommend you for the Bronze Star with V device for valor. What you did today was extraordinary. Maria smiled, finally, allowing herself to feel the exhaustion and relief that came with survival. Thank you, Sergeant, but I was just doing my job. No, Rodriguez replied firmly. You were doing everyone's job, and doing it better than anyone could have imagined. Later investigation would reveal that Alpha Squad had stumbled into a coordinated enemy operation designed to ambush coalition convoys along Highway 7. Maria's communications coordination had not only saved her squad, but had also prevented a major enemy attack that could have resulted in dozens of casualties and significant disruption of coalition supply lines. The woman who had been labeled just support that morning had become the hero who saved not only her squad, but potentially countless other soldiers and civilians who traveled that critical supply route. Her single shot hadn't been fired from a rifle, but from a radio, coordinating the precise fires that rescued her entire squad and eliminated a significant enemy threat. Maria Santos had proven that in modern warfare, communications specialists weren't just support personnel relegated to the rear. They were combat multipliers whose skills could determine the outcome of engagements and save lives when courage, training, and precise execution came together under fire. From that day forward, no one in Alpha Squad would ever again refer to their communications specialist as just support. They had learned, in the most dramatic way possible, that sometimes the most important weapon on the battlefield isn't carried in your hands, but on your back.